going on, my super sandwiches? Rhymestyle here, and today I'm joined by Jaden Tasking for some Dragon Ball game talk. As you guys know, it is May. Well, it's actually been May for,
it's gonna be May.
It's actually end of May at this point. Today's the 26th when this video is being posted. If you watch this in the future, well, it's the future. Basically, May is always the time of the month, or time of the year, actually, not the month. Time of the year when they always announce the next Dragon Ball game. And usually by like E3, we get gameplays and trailers and all that stuff. But this year, we have not gotten any kind of leaks. Usually when a Dragon Ball game is announced, they always have some kind of reveal or leak, I guess, in V-Jump, and then everybody gets crazy, and then usually around E3 time, that's when Bandai Namco always drops a bomb on us. But this year, we didn't get any of that. However, that doesn't mean that we won't. There's still a good chance that they will, and they're just holding something up their sleeves. And for all we know, whenever these presentations are going on, in a couple weeks, bam! You know, it's going to be explosive and amazing. So for that, let's just kind of wait and see what happens. A lot of people are speculating that the game, quote-unquote, for this year, is going to be the Switch version of Xenoverse 2. And honestly, that just doesn't seem very, very likely, because that just, I mean, it counts as a game technically, but it's not a game. So, for that, I guess let's just kind of wait and see what happens. If by E3, we have no reveals, then I guess we confirmed that the Switch version will be the Dragon Ball game for the year. Which kind of sucks, but it is what it is. At least I hope that the Switch version adds more content into the PS4 and Xbox version as well. But again, when there's more news announced around all that stuff, we'll talk about it in the future. But for now, let's just talk about what we want out of the next game. So, we went through a lot as Dragon Ball gaming fans. When I say we, I'm talking about me and Danny specifically, who's also in the video. Hi, Danny.
Hello.
And the reason why I brought Danny on is because we grew up with all the games from Final Bouts to basically Xenoverse 2 today. And I figured, you know what? Let's just hop on a video real fast like we do every single year. I think we actually literally do this every single year around this time too. And just talk about what we want out of the next game. Now, Xenoverse 1 came out in 2014. Xenoverse 2 obviously came out last year. And is Xenoverse 3 something that I personally want? Honestly, no, it's not. It sounds kind of surprising. The Xenoverse series is my personal favorite. Keyword, personal favorite. Everyone has their own personal favorite games. In fact, I want to ask you guys, first question is, what is your personal Dragon Ball game series that's a favorite to you, and why? Comment it down below right now. But even though I deem the Xenoverse series a favorite to me, I don't want the next game to be Xenoverse, mostly because I wanted to take their time on it, and based on what Hirano-san, the producer of the game, has said previously in the past, they want to kind of focus on the next game. I don't know why they rushed Xenoverse 2 so fast, but I'm kind of glad they did, because playing Xenoverse 1 has gotten so stale just due to the fact that it lacked so many key features that later got introduced in Xenoverse 2. So I'm okay with playing Xenoverse 2 for the next year or two while they work on the next game, and of course playing another game in between. But honestly, the way this is set up is I feel like the next game that gets announced will be something else, and then we'll get Xenoverse 3 probably like 2019, 2020, sometime in the far distant future. So the question is what do you want as the next game? And Danny, we're gonna go ahead and have you just jump in and kind of spit that shit. Let me know what you want. What is it that you want to see in the next game?
So it kind of depends, I guess, because I love Xenoverse, and so I would be really happy with Xenoverse 3.
Right.
But from the same point, like you said, I also want Xenoverse 3 to be really, really good. There's obviously still a lot of stuff that they can improve on. So I don't want them to rush it and put it out for a year. However, that being said, I would be really excited for some sort of like 2D fighter. The only problem with that, for me, is that I don't think 2D fighters in the Dragon Ball Z space, at least I know in other, series and things like that, it works a lot differently, but I don't think a 2D fighter in the Dragon Ball Z space would last very long.
Wait, what about Hyper Dragon Ball Z? You played that before.
Okay. Well, so there's the difference though. So Hyper Dragon Ball Z is they're constantly updating it and putting out new characters and things like that.
Right.
So number one, if they do release a 2D fighter, I would love for them to still continue to support Xenoverse 2 a little bit, maybe with like a couple surprise DLCs here and there. But the reason that I say I don't necessarily think a 2D Dragon Ball Z fighter would last as long is because it doesn't have like the MMO aspect of it, for one thing. So you wouldn't have like the hub, you wouldn't have all the side quests. You would probably have a story mission, but it's probably not going to have the Xenoverse storyline, so it'll probably just be the same old Dragon Ball Z storyline, most likely.
Which isn't that bad.
Which isn't, I mean, it's not terrible, but it is, it is something that we have done before. So like what I'm saying is it's not necessarily anything new. So while a 2D fighter would be really, really cool, I just don't know if the lifespan of it would last as long, because really the only thing that they can add into a 2D fighter is more characters and not necessarily.
At that point, it depends on what kind of support you have behind it. Because, like, honestly, what I want to see, this is going to sound really weird to a lot of you guys who aren't that big of a fan of these games anymore, but I would rather see something like a Burst Limit, where it's still 2D but kind of 3D. And Burst Limit is not going to happen, I'll tell you right now, because actually Burst Limit was made by Dimps. And if Dimps is working on the next game, I doubt they'll be, you know, working on Burst Limit and Xenoverse 3, for example. But, like, Burst Limit was one of those games that was so slept on, and it was unfinished. Like, they released that game literally unfinished. It didn't have the freaking Boo Saga. There were characters missing in, like, the Cell Saga. Like, it was actually unfinished. They even had it, like, when you beat the story mode, they show cutscenes that were supposed to be in the story mode, but they weren't shown because, you know, they didn't get a chance to finish the game, which is kind of goofy. So, if they could ever go back and, you know, maybe redo Burst Limit or even do Burst Limit 2, I'd be all for it. But, again, the thing about those games is it depends on what kind of support you put into it. And honestly, what I could see is whether they do Burst Limit or like a 2D fighter, if they do actual support with the games as far as like the competitive side, because those games are, you know, more competitive than a game like Xenoverse is, for example. If they, you know, push the competitive side of it, they can do a lot with it. Because, for example, imagine if, I hate this always use as an example, but imagine bringing releasing a competitive Dragon Ball game and taking it to EVO, and then like having like the best players of all time, you know, duke it out, and like having live streams with it. That would be a lot of fun to do. I would watch that.
See, and I would want that. I wouldn't necessarily. I would prefer it to be like an actual legit 2D fighter, like not necessarily hyper Dragon Ball Z style, right, but maybe like Street Fighter 5 style or something, or like, you know, I don't know if it's gonna be a 2D fighter.
Super Dragon Ball Z was kind of slept on.
Yeah, if it's gonna be a 2D fighter, then I want like a real, like full-on fighting game 2D fighter. I think that would be really,
let
cool.
me just throw in the left field question. What about another arena style fighter, like for example, like Zenkai Battle, for example? Would you want to see something like that?
I don't know. You know, actually, you know what I want? I'm shooting for the stars here. I want a legit Dragon Ball Online. Full-on MMO, create your character, level up, do quests. That's what I want.
Oh, that's kind of that's actually really left field. Now, to kind of talk about Zenkai, the thing about Zenkai is a lot of people was always asking why is Zenkai being like released for home console, and the reason why is because Zenkai has no actual, you know, no structure to the game. The game itself is arcades only in Japan. It has like 40 characters. There's no story mode. There's no training mode. There's no anything. It's literally just 2v2. That's it. And if they ever made Zenkai Battle, they would have to like basically put a lot of resources into the game to redo the story mode, add, you know, all the different modes, online infrastructure, and do a lot with the actual game. So it's not a matter of just taking the game and porting it over. It's literally taking the game and completing it. And maybe that's why they didn't do it. But also, the other theory that I heard was that that game itself makes a lot of money in the Japanese arcades, because Japan is crazy on their arcades. Like, games like even Pokken, for example, make a lot of money in Japanese arcades. So that's why they don't, you know, bring those games over that much. I mean, they brought over Pokken, but it didn't do that well, so they just kind of like left it at
They didn't support it like at all.
Whereas the Japanese version of Pokken in arcades has been getting DLC characters like every couple months or so, whereas, you know, it's just freaking collecting dust on the Wii U version. But the point is would I rather see Zenkai? I mean, honestly, yeah. But the thing is they would have to support it. Like, I think the biggest key here is figuring out if you release the next game and reveal what the next game is how do you support it post-release? Because like Xenoverse did really well. What they did really well was how they did the DLC. Granted, the DLC wasn't always perfect. You know, like DLC 2 to me in Xenoverse 2 was kind of garbage, but DLC 3, amazing. DLC 4 is really hype. I haven't seen it in the gameplay yet. Hopefully we'll get that soon, but it's looking really, really promising. As long as they have something that's really hype like that, I'm all for it. So it's like, you know, give us the core game and then give us the extra stuff later, and then kind of figure out how to promote around it. And again, if they do end up ever, I really don't think this is ever going to happen, but if they do ever go into the competitive side and, like, you know, not drop the casual play, but, you know, add more competitive into it, you know, while, you know, keeping the casual players happy as well, and go into like the competitive aspect like EVO or stuff like that, or just different, like, you know, tournaments and stuff, that's another way to keep whatever that game is, you know, fresh over the course of many, many months. And then, of course, eventually we'll get Xenoverse 3, and then we'll go back into that game. But for the most part, I think the trick to maintain this next game, if the next game even gets announced, is to do something like that. But the question that I mostly want to ask to you guys, to those watching the video, is what would you personally love to see and why? This is the part where everyone's like, oh, I want Raging Blast, I want to take HD remaster. Okay, let me just kind of talk about this real fast. The Raging Blast series is canceled forever. It's never, like, I've talked to them personally before. They're never gonna do Raging Blast 3, so that's all I can say about that. As far as the Tenkaichi HD remaster, I still in my heart feel like it's gonna happen one day, but unfortunately, it's a lot more complicated than you guys may think, because the reason why, and this sounds really goofy to say, the reason why the Tenkaichi HD remake isn't like so easy to do is because nobody has the original files. It's weird to say, like, because it originally was done by Atari and was it Atari and Spike, I think? But Spike now is Spike Chunsoft, a brand new company, and Atari just completely dissolved. So whoever was in charge at the time didn't do a good job holding on to any files and stuff like that. So if they ever redo, or I guess do an HD remaster of Tenkaichi 3, they would have to literally build the game up from scratch, which I don't know how much goes into that, but it's a lot of work. So I think that's why they've been lagging on that, and they haven't really acted on it, because they know we want it. Trust me, they know that we want Tenkaichi 3 as an HD remaster, and maybe one day we'll get it, but for now, it just seems unlikely. Then again, I hope I'm surprised. I'm surprised at E3 this year or maybe next year. I hope that we get it one day as like an extra game, because I think it'll be a lot of fun. But for now, as far as getting a brand new game or going more in the direction of Xenoverse 3, what would you personally want to see? Comment it down below. Danny,
I will say this. I do have faith in them to kind of shake it up a little bit, because at least lately I've been happy with like what they've decided to do with the games that are coming out. Like when they put out Xenoverse and Xenoverse 2, and they like completely changed up the storyline with this whole like timeline thing. And then there's Fusions that came out, and Fusions is really cool, and it's not like any other Dragon Ball Z game that was out before. So I have faith that they're trying to do new, cool, fresh stuff with the series.
That's what I really like about Dragon Ball games, is because every time they introduce something new, it's different. Like, I remember when they were doing Naruto games have basically been the same for the last decade almost, you know, from the Storm series to Revolution to Generations to Storm 4. It's always been the same base core gameplay with, like, you know, additional features and stuff. What I always liked about Dragon Ball is they were always different. Even games like Battle of Z were exciting, you know, at the beginning, just because it was a different experience. You know, you go from Tenkaichi 3 to Raging Blast to Ultimate Tenkaichi to even the Dragon Ball Connect. If that one person out there watching this video like Dragon Ball Connect, going to Battle of Z, going to Xenoverse, going to Dragon Ball Fusions, it's always cool to get a brand new Dragon Ball game that's vastly different from the last game. And whether the game is good or not, it's debatable later, but like the fact that we get something different every single time is exciting.
At least they try.
Yeah,
at least they try to mix it up.
It's also very terrifying, because let's say theoretically a brand new game does get released and it's absolute garbage. Well then, rip. Rip until Xenoverse 3 comes out. But with that said, E3 is coming up, and of course, if there's anything that gets announced and released around that, I will keep you guys in the loop, so make sure you subscribe to the channel, stay tuned. Let me know in the comment section below 2 questions that I want to ask you guys. The first one is, what is your all-time favorite series from any Dragon Ball game ever, and why? And 2, what would you personally want to see if you were in charge of Bandai Namco or whatever developer? What would you build yourself, whether it's a brand new game or just an old series revived? Drop it in the comment section below. And of course, if you're hyped for a brand new game as well, feel free to leave a like right below. 10 times as hard, and we can take it from there. Danny, one last word?
Butts.
Butts. Hashtag butts. We'll see you guys in the comment section below.